Desi Arnaz Jr. entered the world on January 19, 1953, the very day millions of Americans watched Lucy Ricardo give birth on television. The timing was deliberate, not symbolic. It marked the start of a life lived under relentless observation. From the moment he arrived, attention followed him everywhere. Cameras hovered where privacy should have existed. His crib was rolled onto studio lots, positioned carefully for publicity photographs. Childhood moments became promotional material. Years later, he would say that he often felt less like a child and more like a studio prop. By the age of 7, he witnessed an event so devastating it fractured his sense of safety forever. What followed were years marked by addiction, emotional collapse, and at 28, a suicide attempt. Only recently has he spoken openly about what it truly meant to grow up as the son of Lucille Ball. And the reality is far darker than the public ever imagined. Lucille Ball herself was born on August 6, 1911, in the small town of Celerin, New York. Her earliest years carried a sense of calm, the kind that settles gently into memory. That calm vanished abruptly when her father, Henry Durrell Ball, died of typhoid fever on January 1, 1915, just days after Lucille turned 3. The loss was sudden and disorienting. She would later say she never fully understood why everything around her seemed to go silent all at once. With no financial support left behind, her mother, Desiree, known as Dee Dee, was forced to take work as a factory inspector during World War I. Lucille was left in Jamestown with her grandparents. Visits with her mother were limited to weekends, and even those felt infrequent. The separation settled deep within her. It shaped her hunger for connection, her craving for permanence, and her determination to build a life where she would never feel disposable again. In 1921, when Lucille was 10, the family moved to Montana. Soon after, another hardship arrived without warning. She developed severe rheumatoid arthritis and was confined to bed for nearly 2 years. Her body was immobilized by pain, but her imagination refused to stay still. Someone would occasionally wheel in a borrowed projector and play Charlie Chaplin films. Lucille watched them repeatedly, studying every movement, every pause, every carefully timed stumble. She mimicked his walk, absorbed his rhythm, memorized the way humor lived in motion. Those films became her escape light in a room that felt impossibly small. Years later, she would say they preserved her spirit during a time when even sitting upright felt impossible. Without realizing it, she was quietly preparing herself to become one of the most influential physical comedians television would ever know. By the early 1920s, her mother remarried, and the household shifted once again. Change became a constant. In 1927, at just 15 years old, Lucille left school and headed to New York City to pursue modeling. She spent grueling days standing as a Chesterfield cigarette girl at the American Tobacco Exposition, working 18-hour shifts for $30 a week, roughly $500 today. Her feet ached. Meals were skipped. Rent came first. Between shifts, she auditioned for acting roles and faced rejection after rejection. Some told her she lacked star quality. Still, she returned again and again. Eventually, the John Robert Powers Agency signed her, a rare achievement for someone so young, and rarer still for someone who had been dismissed so many times. Those years taught her endurance. They taught her how to walk through closed doors without permission and hold fast to the belief that persistence mattered. In 1932, she tried Broadway under the name Diane Belmont. After weeks of rehearsal for Earl Carroll's Vanities, she believed she had finally found solid ground. 2 weeks later, she was fired. She had arrived late after taking a modeling job she still needed to survive. One conflict erased her opportunity. After that, she drifted between jobs, sometimes sleeping on couches, sometimes questioning whether New York had room for her at all. But she didn't stop. That loss sharpened her instincts. It taught her how unforgiving the industry could be, and how fiercely she would need to fight. Her first film work came in 1933, when she appeared as a Goldwyn girl in Roman Scandals. She earned $50 for the entire production, about $2,100 today. Much of her time was spent performing synchronized swimming routines in frigid water, while more polished actresses drew the spotlight. Her role was simple: smile, stay in formation, disappear into the background. Watching others shine only strengthened her resolve. She auditioned relentlessly, repeating a quiet promise to herself that one day she would no longer be hidden at the edges of the frame. That same year, at 22, she signed a 7-year contract with RKO Pictures for $75 a week. Her film debut remained uncredited, but the work continued. Over the next several years, she appeared in 34 films, mostly low-budget productions where she played chorus girls or brief comedic roles. RKO dyed her hair blonde, a look that would define her image for decades. She became known as the Queen of the BS, a label that followed her relentlessly. Yet inside those modest sets, she learned precision, discipline, and timing. Every minor role became preparation for something she could feel approaching. In 1936, during the filming of Follow the Fleet, she twisted her ankle while dancing alongside Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. She finished her scenes on crutches. The cameras kept rolling. So did she. People noticed. Hollywood respected resilience, and Lucille had learned how to endure. The film premiered on February 28, 1936, and became a hit. She carried that experience with her as proof that she could push through pain when it mattered most. Then the world changed again. When World War II began, Lucille volunteered at the Hollywood Canteen, which opened in October 1942 on North Cahuenga Boulevard. Over 3 million servicemen and women passed through its doors before it closed in November 1945. Night after night, Lucille served food, danced with soldiers, sold war bonds, and lifted spirits. The work was exhausting, unpaid, and deeply personal. For someone who had spent her life searching for belonging, the canteen became a place where purpose finally felt shared. Marlene Dietrich and Bob Hope were often there as well, sharing those long nights at the Hollywood Canteen. While Lucille's career slowed during the war years, her devotion to the servicemen never wavered. She didn't see it as a sacrifice. She saw it as necessary. Helping became part of who she was, and that chapter would remain inseparable from her legacy. Everything shifted again in 1948. Lucille stepped into radio with My Favorite Husband, taking on the role of Liz Cooper, a quick-witted, unpredictable housewife whose schemes and warmth instantly connected with listeners. From July 23, 1948 to March 31, 1951, she recorded 124 episodes. She committed fully to every performance, slamming doors, pacing the studio, and physically acting out scenes so the sound felt alive. The show became a hit, and its sponsor, Jello, ensured it stayed on the air. Audiences fell in love with the energy in her voice, and the success opened a wider door, one that led directly to television. Even then, CBS hesitated. Executives weren't convinced that American audiences would accept Lucille appearing on screen with her real-life husband, Cuban bandleader Desi Arnaz. To prove them wrong, Lucille and Desi built a vaudeville act from the ground up. They trained for hours each day at the Hotel del Coronado in San Diego under the guidance of Pepito the Clown. For 2 intense weeks, they rehearsed singing, dancing, and comedy until their timing became instinctive. Then they hit the road, performing in cities like New York, Minneapolis, Omaha, and San Francisco. Night after night, crowds responded with overwhelming enthusiasm. The message was unmistakable. CBS finally agreed to produce a television pilot. On October 15, 1951, I Love Lucy premiered. Lucille Ball became Lucy Ricardo, and Desi Arnaz became Ricky. The show was filmed using 3 cameras in front of a live audience of 300 people, an approach Desi insisted on to preserve Lucille's timing and the authenticity of real laughter. The result was electric. Nearly 44 million viewers tuned in. America embraced Lucy's chaos, vulnerability, and charm, and the show went on to top the ratings for 4 of its 6 seasons. It didn't just succeed, it redefined the sitcom and reshaped the future of television. During the 1952 to 1953 season, Lucille became pregnant with Desi Arnaz Jr. rather than hiding it. The show made a bold decision to weave her real pregnancy into the storyline. Audiences watched Lucy Ricardo prepare for the arrival of little Ricky. On January 19, 1953, the episode Lucy Goes to the Hospital aired. An estimated 44 million viewers watched, more than those who tuned into President Eisenhower's inauguration the following day. Nearly 71% of American households with televisions were watching. Television had never mirrored real life on that scale before. In that moment, Lucille Ball wasn't just shaping comedy, she was shaping culture itself. By 1956, after 180 episodes, Lucille and Desi formed Desilu Productions and purchased RKO Studios for $2.5 million. Lucille became the first woman to run a major Hollywood studio. Her personal fortune reached $3 million, an extraordinary achievement for a woman in the industry at that time. Desilu went on to produce landmark series like The Untouchables and opened doors for emerging talent. Lucille had risen from anonymous background roles to the most powerful seat in the studio system, carrying with her the same determination forged in childhood. Desi Arnaz Jr. was born on January 19, 1953, in Los Angeles, at the exact moment his parents stood at the absolute peak of television fame. I Love Lucy dominated the airwaves, and the timing of his birth felt almost scripted. Just 12 hours after he was delivered by cesarean section, the episode featuring Lucy Ricardo giving birth aired nationwide. That single broadcast drew 44 million viewers, surpassing the ratings of a presidential inauguration. It became the most-watched television episode in American history at the time, thrusting Desi Jr. into fame before he could even fully open his eyes. He became the most famous baby in America without uttering a sound. From his first day, there was no shelter from public attention. Photographers crowded hospital corridors, and the frenzy grew so intense that his crib was wheeled onto the I Love Lucy set for staged family photographs. Years later, he would say it made him feel less like a child and more like a prop in someone else's production. While his parents worked 12-hour filming days, he spent most of his time with nannies, watching the world adore a perfect family that only existed on screen. He later described himself not as a son, but as a celebrity accessory. As he grew older, the strange reality surrounding him only intensified. Newspapers, fans, and studio expectations followed him everywhere, leaving little room for a normal childhood. His first appearance on I Love Lucy came in 1956 during a Christmas episode where he played toddler Ricky Jr. in a nativity scene. What should have been a gentle moment became overwhelming. The lights were blinding. The attention was suffocating. He burst into tears as cameras rolled. That moment marked the beginning of a lifelong discomfort with the spotlight, a quiet resistance that stayed with him long after the applause faded. It was also an early sign of the weight placed on his shoulders before he could understand it. Because Lucille worked constantly, Desi Jr. often spent weekends at the back school on the Desilu studio lot alongside other child actors. Instead of playing in a backyard, he studied multiplication tables surrounded by costumes, sound stages, and props. Fiction and reality blended together until the line between them nearly disappeared. From the start, his world was scripted, and there was very little room to simply be a child. Years later, Desi Arnaz Jr. would say that he often felt like an extra in his own family's life, watching his parents perform happiness for the world while managing their private turmoil behind closed doors. The contrast between the polished illusion and the reality at home gave him an unsettling awareness far too young. By the age of 5, he was already seeing the adult world without filters. He witnessed the arguments, the strain, and the cracks that widened after Desi Arnaz lost $50,000 gambling in 1956. That moment shattered the image of the perfect Hollywood household he had believed in. What replaced it was tension. Two global stars trying to preserve an image while their marriage quietly unraveled. All of it unfolded while millions of viewers tuned in each week, unaware of what the child inside the mansion was absorbing. When he turned 12, the spotlight found him again. In 1965, he became part of Dino, Desi, and Billy alongside Dean Martin's son Dino and their friend Billy Hinch. Almost overnight, they were labeled a manufactured boy band born from Hollywood royalty. Their single, I'm a Fool, climbed to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. Fans screamed. Headlines followed. On stage, Desi Jr. wore oversized suits so audiences wouldn't realize how young he really was behind the drums. The group sold more than 500,000 copies of their debut single in just 1 month. From the outside, it looked like instant success. Inside, he felt trapped. He later admitted he had been pushed into the band by his father and felt he had little choice. He was visible everywhere, yet felt unheard. The pace took its toll quickly. In 1966, while touring as an opening act for the Beach Boys, Desi Jr. collapsed from heat exhaustion after a 90-minute set in Texas, where temperatures reached 100 degrees. He was rushed to the hospital at just 13 years old, already working the schedule of a seasoned performer, 2 shows a day night after night. The incident shocked fans and briefly exposed how unforgiving the entertainment industry could be to children. Still, within days, his mother urged him back onto the stage. The work never slowed. The cycle simply continued. In 1968, at 15, he earned a Golden Globe nomination for Red Sky at Morning. It should have been a defining triumph. Instead, it came with an undertone he knew too well. Reviews frequently compared him to Lucille Ball, noting echoes of her timing and presence. The recognition mattered, but it also reinforced how difficult it was to be seen as an individual. His identity kept slipping back into the shadow of his parents' fame, no matter how hard he tried to step forward on his own. The following year brought another chart success. His single Silence is Golden reached #1 in the United Kingdom and stayed there for 3 weeks. On paper, it was a clear victory. In reality, he had missed so much school that he failed algebra and was subjected to intense tutoring sessions overseen by Lucille Ball herself, sessions that felt more like rehearsals than lessons. He later said that period left him feeling isolated, as though his education had been traded away to keep the machinery of fame running. Even at home, he felt less like a son and more like a project. By 1970, public fascination expanded beyond his career and into his personal life. At 17, he began dating 23-year-old Patty Duke. The age difference sparked headlines everywhere. Lucille Ball disapproved strongly and monitored their phone calls. When Duke became pregnant, the situation exploded into scandal. Fearing public backlash, she quickly married producer Michael Tell. The relationship ended abruptly, leaving Desi Jr. devastated and deeply shaken. It was another reminder of how little control he truly had over his own narrative. His career continued to shift unpredictably. In 1976, he reached a strange kind of peak when December 1963, Oh, What a Night hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, holding the spot for 3 weeks and topping charts in Canada and the United Kingdom as well. Though he didn't sing lead vocals, he became the face of the song's promotion and even appeared on Saturday Night Live alongside his father. Behind the applause, however, he struggled with intense stage fright and relied on whiskey before performances, a coping mechanism that mirrored his father's habits. Fame kept offering opportunities while quietly taking something in return. After his first band dissolved in 1969, he joined a new group in 1974 called PR Fool, later known as the Jokers. They toured with Neil Diamond, performing before massive crowds. It could have been a fresh start, but internal conflicts quickly surfaced. Desi Jr. developed a reputation for being difficult. Some attributed it to years of pressure and unresolved trauma. Others dismissed it as diva behavior. By 1977, the tension fractured the band, and industry magazines turned the breakup into public spectacle once again. That same year, he starred in Joyride, playing a reckless character driven by impulse and desire. Off-screen, the parallels were impossible to ignore. 2 years earlier, he'd been arrested for driving 110 miles per hour on Mulholland Drive. The chaos of the role felt uncomfortably familiar. Audiences sensed the authenticity in his performance, as if he were reenacting fragments of his own life. In 1978, he pushed himself further in The Users, portraying a jockey and performing his own stunts. One scene threw him from a horse, leaving him with a broken collarbone and requiring a month of recovery. Still, he kept choosing roles that demanded more from him physically and emotionally, almost as if he were trying to outrun the label of being Lucille Ball's son. By 1980, he attempted to reconcile with his past by producing a television tribute to his mother. On screen, the special appeared warm and affectionate, with Desi Jr. interviewing Lucille about her life and career. Behind the cameras, the process was tense. He clashed with producers over how honest the story should be. Even then, he was caught between preserving an image and confronting the truth, an echo of the conflict that had followed him since childhood. He wanted the audience to see the full truth, including the parts where Lucille Ball had been absent during his childhood. Those disagreements exposed the complicated knot of love, resentment, admiration, and lingering hurt he still carried. The special resonated with viewers, but it also quietly revealed the emotional cost of growing up beneath Hollywood's brightest spotlight. Desi Arnaz Jr. moved through that light with undeniable talent, but also with pressure that followed him from set to set, pressure whose origins he wouldn't fully understand until much later. In 1982, he appeared in The Last of the Red Hot Lovers, starring alongside Tony Curtis in a television adaptation where he played Curtis's son. It should have been a light, enjoyable opportunity. Instead, one unscripted moment defined it. During a scene, Desi Jr. suddenly launched into a drum solo, raw, impulsive, and entirely unplanned. It burst out of him with an almost uncontrollable energy that caught everyone by surprise. Audiences responded instantly. Critics praised the spark and unpredictability of his performance. But the show itself struggled. Ratings remained low, and no amount of acclaim could keep it alive. Rather than pushing his career forward, the experience narrowed how the industry saw him. Casting directors began to view him as the troubled heir, the famous last name still trying to prove itself. He later said those years were deeply frustrating, defined by a constant desire to be seen not as someone's son, but as an actor standing on his own merit. Slowly, a hard lesson set in. Connections meant little without sustained, undeniable momentum. He tried again in 1983 with Automan, a bright and unconventional science fiction series in which he played Walter Nebuchar, a hacker navigating a digital world unlike anything television had seen before. Early CGI effects gave the show a futuristic look and playful rhythm that immediately intrigued some viewers. But innovation came at a cost. Budgets ballooned, and the network grew uneasy. After just 13 episodes, the series was canceled. For Desi Jr., the loss cut deeper than most. He understood what happened when creativity collided with financial pressure. His own family had lived through it at Desilu Productions. Bold ideas, unstable footing, relentless expectations. Automan felt like another door closing, not just on him, but on viewers who believed the show deserved more time. By 1985, he was fully immersed in the miniseries North and South, playing a Confederate officer with intense commitment. He leaned into method acting, even participating in reenactments to understand the psychology and physical weight of the role. But the brutal Atlanta heat during filming took its toll. One day, he collapsed on set, forcing production to shut down while he recovered. Later, he admitted the heat wasn't the only cause. Old family wounds resurfaced whenever he pushed himself too hard or felt scrutinized. His parents' explosive divorce in 1960 had left scars that reopened under pressure. He said it often felt as though he carried their arguments with him, even to distant locations. That collapse forced him to confront a difficult truth. There were limits to how much he could endure without breaking. In 1990, he found an unexpected release by lending his voice to The Simpsons. The role allowed him to parody his own fame and struggles with a self-awareness that surprised audiences. For once, he could laugh at himself and invite the public to laugh with him rather than at him. Around the same time, he was offered a role in a biopic about Lucille Ball. He declined. He later said it would reopen wounds he wasn't ready to face. The comparisons, the scrutiny, the sense of being reduced to a footnote in his parents' story, it was more than he was willing to revisit. Saying no marked a turning point. It showed he had begun to understand what he needed to protect. By 1992, he stepped away from major acting roles after portraying his father in The Mambo Kings. The role was an honor, but emotionally complex. In 1995, he told People magazine that his two-decade career had earned him roughly $5 million, but it cost him a normal life. He described living beneath the shadow of Lucille Ball's $40 million legacy, a shadow so large it often swallowed his own accomplishments. The money, he said, never compensated for the stress, the typecasting, or the family moments lost to fame. That bill had been accumulating since childhood. The deeper struggle, however, began long before any of those roles. By 15, Desi Jr. was already drifting through Hollywood parties, experimenting with marijuana and LSD while older celebrities encouraged the behavior. By 1970, he had found doctors willing to accept $500 in cash for Quaalude prescriptions. When his band broke up in 1969, a profound emptiness followed, and drugs rushed in to fill the silence. Addiction became a pattern that stretched through his late teens and early 20s. Then came 1972. His engagement to Liza Minnelli ended abruptly when she left him for Peter Sellers. The breakup unfolded publicly and without warning. Though he later explained the relationship had already been unraveling, the impact was devastating. He spiraled into a cocaine binge that lasted weeks. One night, he rented a Ferrari, lost control, and crashed it into a hotel fountain. Police prepared to arrest him, but Lucille Ball intervened quietly, making the situation disappear. The wreck exposed the chaos consuming him. The cover-up revealed how fiercely his mother fought to preserve the family image. He tried again to find stability with Linda Pearl. They married in January 1979, but by January 1980, the marriage had collapsed. His drug use intensified, particularly with mescaline, and during a performance in Las Vegas, he hallucinated on stage and smashed his drum kit in front of a stunned audience. Pearl later said the relationship had been overwhelmed by tension fueled by addiction and stubbornness. Their divorce after just 6 months became yet another reminder of how deeply drugs had distorted his personal life. By 1981, Desi Arnaz Jr. was only 28 years old when doctors finally sat him down and showed him a scan of his brain, an image that forced him to confront how close he had come to losing everything. Doctors told him the scans looked like the brain of someone decades older. Cocaine, LSD, Quaaludes, years of chemical strain had worn him down from the inside. He fell into a deep depression and, overwhelmed by exhaustion and despair, attempted to end his life through an overdose. Lucille Ball was the one who found him. She pleaded with him to get help, her voice unsteady, fear breaking through the control she had mastered so well. Desi Jr. entered the Scripps Clinic for detox, beginning a recovery process that was neither quick nor simple, but it was a step toward survival. Therapy uncovered wounds he hadn't yet learned how to name. His mother loved him, but her discipline came through silence. Days without words. No warmth, no reassurance, just emotional absence. Even small mistakes could trigger it. Therapists later explained that this pattern shaped how he understood love and self-worth, how affection could vanish without warning. His marriage to Amy Laura Bargiel in 1987 brought stability into his life, but the scars from childhood remained deeply embedded. The damage, he came to understand, began long before addiction ever entered the picture. When Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz divorced in May 1960, he was only 7 years old. The separation followed years of loud, painful arguments, moments he could hear but not understand. In 1959, he overheard his mother accusing his father of infidelity, a memory that stayed with him for decades. Just weeks after the divorce, Life magazine staged a smiling family portrait, while behind the scenes, lawyers fought bitterly over custody. He was expected to perform normalcy, while everything he depended on was falling apart. His father's alcoholism deepened the instability. In 1965, on the night of Desi Jr.'s first major band performance, his father was supposed to be there. Instead, he was in Las Vegas, gambling away $10,000. That absence fractured something inside him. In response, Lucille Ball tightened her control even further, managing every angle of the family's public image while their private world continued to unravel. There were moments of light, convalescence with his father, shared rhythm, shared breath. But they were rare. In 1970, Desi Jr. visited his father in Del Mar and found a house filled with empty bottles and silence. His father sat heavy with memory and loss, still haunted by being forced to leave Cuba as a child. In him, Desi Jr. recognized the same emptiness he feared within himself. He later said the nightmares of abandonment followed him well into his 40s. In 1971, Lucille's control intensified again after rumors involving Duke University embarrassed her. She grounded him for 2 weeks, locked away his drums, and lectured him about legacy and image. He felt punished for being young, for being human. Resentment grew, but guilt lingered longer. For decades, he believed the divorce was partly his fault. In 2025, his sister Lucy revealed that he had confessed believing his birth made their marriage harder. The fear of being the reason people leave never fully let go. Healing took years. In 1981, he entered Scripps Clinic for detox. For years later, his father called him in desperation, using the alias Bill Sanchez. He told his son he didn't want to die. Desi Jr. guided him toward treatment, helping save his father's life and giving them a final period of closeness before Desi Arnaz Sr. passed away in 1986. By 1987, Desi Jr. stepped away from Hollywood entirely, moving to Boulder City, Nevada. Quiet replaced chaos. Together with Amy, he spent $1.2 million restoring the historic 1932 Boulder Theater. They transformed it into a nonprofit community space for ballet, music, and local events. When it reopened in 1997, nearly 390 people attended. The applause felt different there. Real faces. Real connection. It became a place where he could give something back, rather than lose another piece of himself. In 2025, he spoke openly again about his mother. He said the hardest thing to forgive was how Desilu Productions always seemed to come before bedtime stories. He admitted his addictions were, in many ways, a cry for her attention. He remembered the exact words used when his parents announced their divorce in 1960. Look, things aren't working. The simplicity of that sentence still hurt decades later. In a rare moment of peace, he also shared his father's final words in 1986. I love you, son. Those words healed pieces of him that had been broken since childhood. He said fame gave his family everything and nothing at the same time. The loneliness of growing up famous stayed with him deep into his 70s. Now he spends his time helping others face addiction, working with nonprofits across Nevada, and speaking directly to people online. In a 2024 YouTube message, he offered the lesson his life had taught him the hardest way. Choose family over legacy. Choose love over applause. Choose honesty over image. He speaks calmly now, but every word carries the weight of decades. His story has become both a warning and a guide.